Howdy folks, and welcome back. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to be exploited by your boss who has absolutely no sympathy for you and views you only as a way for them to hoard more wealth? Oh, wait, you've worked retail before? Never mind, you're pretty used to that feeling. Same here. But unlike the soul-crushing experience of being shouted at by a Karen who purposefully ordered something she'd be allergic to just so she could shout at you for nearly killing her, just so she could feel something in her otherwise dead life, Assassin's Creed Syndicate gives you the opportunity to strike back against the wealthy oppressors and not only explore industrial-era London, but we also get a fantastic new mechanic that has never been seen again: zip lines. As we continue our foray into getting every Assassin's Creed Platinum trophy, I thought Syndicate would be the next stopping point on our journey. I have an interesting relationship with this game. When it first came out, for whatever reason, I just hated it. It didn't feel right. Now, as a much older and wiser gamer who has seen true disappointment in gaming, I believe I treated Syndicate too harshly. And in all seriousness, absolutely loved the game. Especially coming off of Valhalla, the smaller AC world and shorter storyline was really appreciated. And of course, no conversation would be complete without talking about the main characters, Jacob and Evie Fry. They were fantastic foils to each other, and for anyone who has siblings, Ubisoft did a solid job of showing that sibling rivalry without it being cringy or over the top. But enough of that, let's chat trophies. There's 50 trophies, including the Platinum, which requires us to beat the story and achieve full synchronization, a bunch of combat-related challenges, the quintessential Ubisoft Collectathon, and other miscellaneous trophies that deal with our associates, but more on that later. With all this out of the way, let's throw that number up here on the board and begin. Now, Syndicate starts off like any good game should, absolutely derailing the hell out of a train and just making it out alive. Now, I could give you more context into what was going on, but do you really care? Yeah, probably, actually. Do I have the footage, though? No. Anyway, great start to the video, I can already tell. And oh, yeah, we got our first trophy, a spanner in the works for completing Sequence 1. Yes, it was literally one mission. After then completing a quick mission with Evie, we are transported to the real world where we see Sean and Rebecca infiltrating the offices of a major Templar individual. It appears both sides are looking for something known as the Shroud. Well, that little espionage trick doesn't really work out for him, with the main assassin hunter himself, Otso Berg, showing up to the little soiree. The two are able to escape through a hole in the wall that they created using explosives, and we get our second trophy, a simple plan for completing Sequence 2. We are just flying through these sequences. And yes, before you ask, Sequence 2 was also one mission and a cutscene. And with that, Evie and Jacob are now finally in London. So let me catch you up to speed real quick. Basically, the Templars have controlled London for around 2 centuries, and the current Grand Templar is a man named Starrick, who basically controls everything. In the economic sense. Also a little bit in the political. The assassins have been skirting around London, but never able or willing to actually do something and get a foothold. Evie and Jacob intend to actually try and do something, and to do this, they will meet up with another assassin known as Henry Green. Our next task was creating a gang known as the Rooks. They would help us deal with the criminal element Starrick employed. We also got to meet and assist Alexander Graham Bell, and we helped him deal with the propaganda being spilt by Starrick's telecommunications network, and also the fact that there was no other telecommunication network at all, so anything Starrick said went. And finally, we also have a train, which we achieved by bumping off the first leader of the Blighters, that criminal element I was telling you about. All of this leads into the A Modern Babylon trophy, and while I recognize I am sort of just speeding through these first 3 trophies, the reality is that these are just A, setup, and B, you can actually get these pretty quickly, probably within the first 2 or 3 hours of the game if you speed it. I will slow it down a bit more for sequences 4 through 9, but enough of that. We have more trophies to obtain. As any good AC game goes, you, as the name suggests, assassinate individuals. Well, it wouldn't be Assassin's Creed without some trophy giving us that dopamine rush for committing heinous acts of brutality. Blade in the Crowd is exactly that, and is awarded for assassinating 50 individuals. Now is a good time to talk about the Associates and conquering London. London has 7 boroughs, each with multiple takeover activities. These can include assassinating Templars, freeing child laborers, arresting criminals, etc., etc. Each of these activities are tied to a specific associate. As you do the missions and complete the optional objectives, which is critical to get the most experience, you will level up said associates and be rewarded with blueprints, items, or resources. There are 3 main associates you must worry about, them being Henry Green, Sergeant Aberline, and Clara. But there are 3 other associates that you'll encounter that you'll have to get to level 1 for a later trophy, but more on that later when we get to it. The reason the above 3 are important are there are 4 trophies tied to each of their specific activities. This is not counting nor dealing with the later World War I simulation, but that's spoilers. We'll talk about that later. Thief Takers are first of the 4 associate mission trophies, and it's rewarded for bringing back 3 captives alive. Killing the captive is easier, sure, but you get more XP, and more importantly, the trophy, if you abide by the law. Outside of the whole kidnapping thing. Unqualified Success is our second associate trophy, and this one is based on the murder of Templars. To obtain the trophy, though, you have to murder, assassinate, whatever word you want to use, 3 targets using the optional objectives. These can range from kill with explosives to having an officer kill the target. Not at all related to the associates, our next trophy, Queensberry Rules, is for achieving a 40-hit combo. Now, honestly, I thought that was going to be a lot harder, but I actually got 40-hit combos relatively easily, so you guys will be fine. Following that, we obtain Flawless Conquer, another associate-based mission trophy that has you taking over actual gang areas. But to get this trophy specifically, you have to do this 3 times while completing the optional objective 3 times. This isn't overtly difficult, just make sure if the optional objective is to save rooks, that they don't actually end up getting killed once they've been untied. They aren't, the smartest bunch. This next trophy, What is Wrong With You, can be easily obtained during Sequence 4, The Crate Escape, as you have infinite bullets, and all you really have to do is shoot 5 horses, thus flipping carriages. If you're a fan of horses, then, well, I'm sorry, we all do things we aren't proud of for those platinum trophies. Each sequence is broken into 2 portions, Evie missions and Jacob missions. They typically follow the same story beats, with Evie looking into the Piece of Eden, while Jacob is assassinating Templars that are all connected to Stark. You can do this in many different ways, and you can do it in any order you want, but the last mission is always going to be an assassination mission in some form or another. Sometimes you'll play as Jacob, other times as Evie. In this case, for the end of Sequence 4, and to get the quick and reliable Remedy trophy, for completing Sequence 4, we find out that Stark has been selling something known as Stark's Soothing Syrup, which does absolutely nothing. Well, okay, except for getting people sick. So Jacob decides the best way to deal with the problem is by assassinating the doctor that works with Stark. This also sort of has the undue effect of closing down one of the largest hospitals in London, so, whoopsies. The industrial era was known for many things. Proper care of children, though, not one of them. Probably not even the top 10. So, child labor was pretty common, sadly, but you can do something about it in the game. In another associate mission, you are able to free the children and take over the factory. This, in turn, rewards the Children's Aid Society for simply completing 5 child liberation missions. Now, let's talk about some more side associates. These are less important, but you still need to complete some of their missions to get them to level 1, and they also have later trophies in general. These are Ned Weinert and Robert Topping. Ned deals with escort and raid activities. These are incredibly useful for when you're running low on supplies, but, there are trophies related to these activities, and we'll talk about them later. Robert Topping's activities deal with bare-knuckle boxing and horse races. These also, of course, have their own trophies attached to them. In this case, as you can clearly see, we're going for the bare-knuckle boxing one, Bare Knuckle Champion, for winning 3 different fight clubs. To win, by the way, you have to beat every round at the specific club. Throughout the game, you're going to come across random crowd events taking place, such as scaring bullies, killing criminals, or catching a thief. The trophy, Ordinary Criminal, is awarded after you complete 20 of these crowd events across the map. This is also pretty easy to track, as a little counter pops up every time you complete one. Alright, on to Sequence 5. The main takeaway here is that Evie was able to find more information on the Piece of Eden, the Shroud, and even found a key that should allegedly unlock, or at least point to, where the Shroud is going to be. She ends up losing that key to Lucy Thorne, but that's not important right now. On Jacob's side, he wants to mess with Stark's control of the public transport system and teams up with one Pearl Attaway. Well, turns out Miss Attaway was actually Stark's cousin, and when Jacob finds out he's basically been assisting the Templars, he gets a little, murder happy and offs Attaway. Doing so completes the 5th sequence and awards the Perils of Business trophy. Friends at My Back is a gang-based trophy, which simply requires you to have 5 gang members following you at once. To do this, you will need the specific gang upgrade to have 5 followers, and then just find 5 gang members to recruit. We now have Robert Topping's 2nd associated trophy, that of a quarter furlong at a time, and if you understand what that means, please let me know. In plain English, it's the carriage racing, and to obtain the trophy, you have to come in first in 3 different races, different being the operational word here. About to get a very fun 2-for-1 special on trophies on this one assignment. The first is Furious, for destroying 20 vehicles by ramming them with a carriage. Very simple, I refuse to finish that sentence. And our second trophy in our 2-for-1 special is Treasure Hunter, which is obtained for completing 10 raids. These are the Ned Weinert Associate missions that deal with stealing resources from the Blighters. These can be hijacking convoys, sabotaging boats, and train robberies. Opium, a terrible drug with an even longer and bloodier history. So what does Opium and Assassin's Creed have in common? Honestly not sure, but the next trophy is called Opium Scourge, so that has to count for something. This is obtained when you have at least 4 enemies under the effect of a hallucinogenic dart at once. It's now time to take a break from Industrial Era London and pop into World War I era London. See, at some point in the middle of the game, an anomaly opens up that lets you take control of Lydia Fry, Evie's daughter, during World War I. This is where you'll meet the game's last associate, Winston Churchill. Yes, that Winston Churchill. We also run into Juno, but that's less important. I won't lie. Playing this small bit of World War I London makes me really want a World War I or II era Assassin's Creed game. There are also some fantastic comics that I've picked up that also depict World War I and II, and just, God, it's so good, man. I think Lydia would make an excellent protagonist in a full-length game. Anyways, we have a few trophies in this section before we return to Jacob and Evie. At this point, Churchill's the only associate that's not at level 1, meaning to get the trophy, a broad base, we just have to do his side activities. There's only 5, and Churchill is actually who we're also going to use for a later trophy, but that in a moment. Upon getting him to level 1, we receive our trophy for having all associates at the first level. The main story of the World War I simulation is that Lydia's working with Churchill to root out German spies, who also just so happen to be Templars. It's a fairly simple and straightforward story with 4 or so main missions, but again, what do you expect? This is a little side thing in the much larger game. Anyways, when you actually complete the story, you'll obtain the trophy The War at Home for completing the World War I simulation. Following that, I then obtain the trophy Bedfellows, Strange, or Otherwise, which requires you to reach max level loyalty with any one associate. See, I was under the impression they had to be at level 5, but that's what we call not reading for meaning. See, Churchill only has 2 loyalty levels, and if you do all the main and side activities, as well as all the optional objectives, you will max him out, and thus the trophy will pop. It is now time to bid goodbye to the gunsmoke of World War I. We return to the smog-filled air of the Industrial Era. And more specifically, we're wrapping up Sequence 6. This sequence dealt a lot with Jacob and an alleged bank robbery of Britain's largest bank. After doing some sleuthing, we come to realize that it's the bank manager, Twopenny. Oh, seriously? Twopenny? They're a banker named Twopenny? That's honestly like calling a Batman villain who uses pennies in his crime the Penny Plunderer. Oh, wait, no, that's an actual thing. In that case, never mind. So this Twopenny is a Templar and planning a bank robbery, and Jacob lends his blade to his neck. Get it? 'Cause lends like a loan? 'Cause we're in a bank? Anyway, doing so and finishing the mission gives us the Run on a Bank trophy. This next trophy I honestly did not realize I would get, I just wanted to drop barrels. Lookout Below requires you to hit 3 enemies at once with 1 stack of barrels. Glad to say I got this now and I did not have to farm it later. Evie and Jacob both have skill trees, and for the most part they're the same, except that Evie has some extra stealth skills and Jacob has some extra combat ones. There are 2 trophies tied to each of these, and they require you to complete a specific tree. In Evie's case, Phantom is for completing her stealth skill tree. Why I don't get Jacob's skill tree associated trophy right now, I honestly have no idea. But we do get this sync trophy, Chimney Sweep, for synchronizing with all of the sync points. Following this up with Guardian Angel, the other Ned Weinert associated trophy for successfully escorting 10 friendly cargo shipments. Again, these are randomly spawned throughout the world, and it just happens to have taken me way too long to get to 10. Remember the whole skill tree thing? Well, Jacob and Evie each have their own level, which dictates what level of items and weapons they can equip. You level up by spending skill points, and by unlocking the entire skill tree on either character, you'll receive the Wonder of an Age trophy for reaching level 10. It's now time to clear out London of the Blighter Scourge forever. To do this, as I had mentioned prior, you have to do all the associate activities and clear each borough section by section. Once you actually do that, you'll then be presented with a gang war. You do this by partaking in a much larger fight with Rooks versus Blighters, and if you win the borough. Win all the boroughs and you'll receive that coveted gold trophy, Street Sweeper. Though, it's not actually as coveted as the Platinum, but we aren't there yet. Okay, now it's time to get Jacob's skill-related trophy. And this one really needs no explanation. Although the name is kind of funny, Bartitsu is obtained for acquiring all of Jacob's combat skills. Feels like they kind of put bar and jujitsu together into a word, but in case you were wondering, yes, there is a crafting component in this game because it came out at the height of every game needing a crafting component. Now keep in mind, I don't actually say that with derision, and yes, X-Pilot, it's a word. I've always been a fan of crafting mechanics. Anyway, Artisan is awarded for crafting a level 10 item. It wouldn't be a Ubisoft game without some level of collectibles, and we'll get to the main collectible run in the cleanup portion, but for now, let's talk about the music boxes. There's 32 music boxes total, strewn throughout London, that you can find by going to the Secrets of London tab and deciphering the code. Or you can use a guide online, but I plead the fifth on which option I chose to use. Once you obtain all 32, you'll then head to the designated vault and obtain the Aegis, which, in my opinion, really isn't that cool looking, and I respect that that might be a hot take, but doing so, you will also receive the beautiful trophy, Godlike. Alright, enough miscellaneous quests, it's time to actually finish up the story, and we'll do that starting in Sequence 7. Evie has killed Lucy Thorne and retrieved the key, and has now realized that the shroud is somewhere under Buckingham Palace. She also had to clean up Jacob's mess at the bank, which led to the near economic collapse of the pound. Little whoopsies. In the meantime, Jacob's destructive tendencies has him turning his eyes towards a Templar conspirator in politics, the Earl of Cardigan, who has, in my opinion, the best death scene in the game. Now, this isn't because I think it's verbose or incredibly well spoken or it hit really hard. I just love his level of arrogance, so here, enjoy it.
Coward! Villain! Alas, that the hero of Balaclava should fall not on the gloried fields of Crimea, but to an assassin's blade in the very halls of power.
Are you finished yet?
Take your bow, knave, for you have managed what no Russian battery, what no Indian tiger could achieve. Claim your trophy, and may you choke on it.
Yes, but do tell me more about Balaclava.
Farewell. Farewell, dear Britannia. Your dawn shall be dimmer that the Earl of Cardigan sees it not. God save the Queen and the 11th Hussars.
What a prick.
Once he's dead and we escape Parliament, we obtain the trophy, all's fair in politics. Sequence 8 is the shortest of the sequences, and you can actually do it at any point after the third one, but because I like to keep things in numerical order, obviously I did it last, well, outside of Sequence 9. Sequence 8 has to do with Maxwell Roth, the leader of the Blighters, who writes Jacob asking for an audience. Now Jacob agrees, and Roth tells him he's tired of Starrick and wants to mess with him a little bit. Jacob, being Jacob, obviously agrees, and the two cause a little mischief together, though the partnership is short-lived after Roth blows up a building with children inside. Whoops. Jacob then attends the play that Roth puts on, who also is intending to kill everyone inside, and, wants to stop him doing that. Jacob does kill Roth, but the attack Roth had planned still sort of worked out as he sets the whole theater on fire. Alright, well, most likely a few died, but Jacob was able to escape, and more importantly, we received the trophy, The Joys of Freedom.
You're late.
At this point, the siblings are at each other's throats. Evie's pissed that Jacob doesn't even remotely think about the ramifications of who he's killing and how it affects the rest of the country, and Jacob's pissed that Evie seems to only care about the piece of Eden and badgering him. Very sibling-like. The two decide it might be best to go their separate ways until Henry Green steps in to let them know that Starrick is making his move on the Shroud in Buckingham Palace during the ball. That will be happening soon. The two decide to work together one last time to stop said Grand Master for good.
Father is dead!
Enough! I have just received word from my spies. At the palace ball tonight, Starrick plans to steal the piece of Eden, and then eliminate all the heads of church and state.
Once more for old time's sake?
And then we're finished.
Agreed. So what's the plan?
Well, Jacob, the plan is rather simple. You and Evie will infiltrate the ball, where Evie will find the hidden plans in the Queen's White Room, while you deal with any Templar issues. The plans start off easy enough. Evie is able to enter the White Drawing Room and obtain the plans, where she finds the Shroud in a crypt underground. Or at least that's what the plan says. She hasn't actually found the Shroud yet. As she heads for the crypt, she's interrupted and is required and or forced to meet Queen Victoria herself. Admittedly, this is pretty cool, and I've always enjoyed seeing the historical figures in these games. As Evie walks away, though, of frickin' course, Starrick has to do the evil villain shenanigans thing and asks Evie for a dance. Societal norms dictate she oblige, which just stupid. Do you know how many times I've turned down a dance? I'm not actually going to answer that question either, you'll just have to guess. Anyways, Starrick states that once the song is over, she dies, as he points to Templars disguised as royal guards on the roof. Can I also say how creepy Starrick is? Not in the, horror creepy, but in the, creepy. He's just, ugh. But he's a good villain.
Heals all wounds.
With Evie currently in a bind, we now switch to Jacob, who, with the help of Sergeant Aberline, smuggles their equipment into the ball. Jacob changes and gets to work dealing with the Templars that are stationed on the roof. With their deaths, Evie is now free from the immediate danger by firing squad. Jacob then just has to free the remaining real Royal Guard from Templar control, and killing the other Templars, because of course. He then gives a signal to Evie that all's well, which gives Evie the time she needs to smash Starrick's foot because, well, honestly, who wouldn't? That, sadly, gave Starrick the chance to pilfer the key to the shroud and made a break for the vault. Jacob joins up with Evie, handing her equipment, and he's then commanded, one of the two, to book it to the vault to actually stop Starrick.
Just like that? No plan?
No time for plans. I'll catch up as soon as I'm rid of this infernal contraption.
And so that's exactly what we do. Jacob chases Starrick into the crypt, but he's a little too late. Starrick was able to open the vault and has obtained the shroud. We then cut back to Evie after Jacob appears to get absolutely trounced. And now it's Evie's turn to enter the vault, and the final battle commences. The fight's actually pretty simple. What you have to do is simply reach Starrick as he uses special Eden powers to stop you. Once you do, you and your sibling beat the snot out of him for a little while, until he grabs one of the two, sending the other flying back. You'll do this a few times until you're actually able to kill the man through the timely assistance of Mr. Green.
Let's.
Starrick then gives one of the most mid-death speeches I've seen in the series, but that also may be just because I don't respect the man. And with that, the story of Syndicate is complete. Starrick is dead, and the Fry twins live on to protect London. But son, I hear you say, what about the trophies? Dear viewer, this is a trophy video after all. Patience is key.
You were Mr. Starrick. You were.
We now cut to Queen Victoria knighting the three of them and thanking them for their service to Queen and country. And now, dear viewers, we get to the trophies. The first is Shall We Dance, for actually completing Sequence 9 and completing the entire story, followed immediately by Mentor for obtaining 100% synchronization. If you don't know, I try to not leave the synchronization trophy till cleanup, as for whatever reason, it just really frustrates me. Rather just get it done and dust it out of the way. We are now officially in the cleanup phase, and we start with some of the more annoying combat-related trophies. There are a few things that you'll have to do in the game that realistically you just won't get naturally by just playing. The first is the trophy No Ticket. This one requires you to kick off 50 enemies from a moving train. There are several ways to do this, but I found the best way, and the most reliable, was to just keep doing this section of the very first mission where you play with Evie. It was slow going, but it was consistent. After enough time, the trophy pops. Next up was Needle in a Haystack, where you're going to have to kill 5 enemies from the same haystack. Now, this is not an uncommon trophy to have in most AC games. We've definitely seen it in Black Flag and Rogue, if I'm remembering correctly. The difference, though, after I looked up how to do this efficiently, is you don't actually have to stay in the haystack. You just have to kill 5 people from the same haystack. Once you do that, you'll be rewarded with the trophy. Next up is Blade from Above, and this is a zipline using trophy. Honestly, you would have thought there would have been more, but whatever. You have to kill 20 enemies from above while you're on a zipline. You can actually track this in the perk menu as you need 25 zipline kills for the related perk, and we'll talk about perks later. Another joyful combat trophy's up. This one, most unsporting, requires you to quick fire or quick shoot 50 enemies before they shoot you. When you see the marker above your head, you need to hit the required button. For PlayStation, of course, it's the triangle button. Here's the problem. You don't always shoot back. Sometimes you'll just dodge the bullet, and it can get frustrating. This was also one of those trophies that I just kept doing one mission over and over again. I just brute forced it, if I'm being honest with you. Also, it's important to note you don't actually have to kill the enemy to get a, number, right? To go from 49 to 50. You just have to hit them. And once you hit 50, wham bam, thank you ma'am, that's a trophy. Alright, now we're getting to the collectathon that Ubisoft games are known for. And the first is the Trophy A Life in Letters. This requires you to collect the 12 royal letters found in the Westminster Borough. I also recommend you actually read the letters. They're real letters written by Queen Victoria, and one is addressed to Mary Lincoln after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. It's really cool. Yeah, but I also don't really want to do the collectibles right now, and I just want to get these last frustrating trophies out of the way. Except for the one. And if you know which one I'm talking about, we'll get to that. The first is you wouldn't do this to a policeman's cap. Now, admittedly, I despised this trophy only because I always seemed to goof it. It was purely user error, mind you. To do this, you have to hijack a policeman's carriage, but if you do this as you normally would any other carriage, since there are 2 police officers on it, you'll just get thrown out of the vehicle and then you're SOL. What you have to do is get to the top of the carriage and using a knife, kill the first officer by hitting him in the head, and then quickly, like the moment the knife hits his head, hijack the carriage. As you clearly just saw, I was not quick enough. Once you do this 20 times though, you will then get the trophy. The next combat trophy is Whirlwind of Death, and this is just, it's not frustrating, but it can be time consuming. To obtain the trophy, you have to complete 50 multi-finishers. These can be double, triple, or quadruple kills, but they all count towards the 50 total. To achieve a multi-finish, you must get enemies into a downed state, which you can tell by the white outline around them. When there are more than one in a certain distance from each other, those enemies will all be highlighted in white, and a quick cutscene will play showing the multi-finisher. I got about 40 in my total playtime of the game, and I got the last 10 doing boxing because it was the easiest way I found to drop someone into a down state and have others nearby. Once you do all 50, you'll get the trophy. The Gang Final Trophy, the Keys to the City, is awarded after you fully upgrade the gang skill tree. To do this, you'll need crafting resources and money. It can get moderately expensive, especially if you don't do any side activities, so I'd highly recommend doing as many of those as you can, and then you'll get the trophy. Okay, so it's time to talk about perks and the related trophy. Multi-Talented requires you to unlock 10 different perks. Now, these perks are actually separate from the skill tree. Perks give you a small bonus and are obtained after doing a certain action a certain amount of times. While playing the game normally, you'll most likely unlock 7 to 8 perks naturally. So once you're in the cleanup phase, you just need to pick the few that are the easiest for you from your list and get them done. In my case, I went with double kills, going back to the boxing area to obtain that last needed perk. Alright, back to the collectibles. The first are the vintage beer bottles. You can buy maps from shopkeepers to find exactly where all the bottles are, and you'll be awarded with the Cerveza File trophy. Now, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be pronounced in Spanish since cerveza is beer in Spanish, but I might be wrong in that. Next, we have Language of Flowers, which all it asks is you go around and find all the pressed flowers. Again, there's a map for this, which you can just buy at the shop. The hardest part is just going around and collecting all of them. And our very last collectibles trophy is Student of History. And this, much like the last two, requires us to find all the illustrations, and before you worry, yes, there is a map you can buy from the store. Alright, it's now time to move on to that trophy. All games have that one trophy. Some have many, and Syndicate is really no different. Now, if you still don't know what I'm talking about, I am, of course, speaking about Without a Grudge, which requires you to destroy 5,000 destructibles with a carriage. Online lore says that a Ubisoft employee accidentally hit an extra 0 as it was supposed to be 500, and it was just never changed. Is it real? I don't know, probably not. Is it my headcanon? Yeah, absolutely. Now, mind you, I knew about this trophy since the beginning of the game and had been smacking destructibles whenever I got the chance, but it still took me well near an hour of running the same loop over and over and over again to actually get the trophy. Huge shout out to the creator Video Game Unlocked for his video on what I found to be the best loop to run in this game. I'll put the link to his video in the description below, and again, big thanks for that. Anyways, after listening to a horror podcast, shout out Old Gods of Appalachia, for like 40 minutes, the trophy finally popped. And finally, after that is complete, with no introduction necessary, we get the Platinum Trophy for Assassin's Creed Syndicate Master Assassin. This was a heck of a game, one I truly enjoyed, and while some of the trophies were an absolute pain in the butt, I am happy to add this one to my collection. This video also had 2 styles regarding the story, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. The first was a quick synopsis of each story portion, and then the trophy. You saw this in all of the sequences -9. This style allows for a shorter video, but less quote-unquote gameplay, so to speak. Or I could do the more play-by-play, as you've seen with Sequence 9, and if I remember correctly, in the Ezio Trilogy games. Honestly, give me your thoughts down below. I have been absolutely loving hearing about all your guys' adventures with Platinums as well. And with Syndicate complete, we now have Unity, Origins, and Odyssey left before Shadows comes out next year. And I'll most likely be tackling Unity to finish up that era of the AC series. With that, thank you all so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.